There was a moment in Rush history when fans realized the band was entering a completely new era. By the late 1990s, rock music had changed dramatically. Grunge had exploded, alternative bands dominated radio, and many classic rock groups were struggling to stay relevant. But Rush refused to become a nostalgia act. Instead of repeating the same formula that made them famous in the 70s and 80s, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart pushed forward once again. That decision led to one of the most important albums of their later career, Test for Echo. When Rush arrived at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City during the 1997 tour, critics immediately noticed something different. Newspaper headlines described the concert as new tunes and some echoes of the past. That description perfectly captured what the band was trying to do. Rush wanted to honor their legendary catalog while also proving they still had creative fire left in them. The Test for Echo tour became a fascinating chapter because it showed Rush balancing two worlds. Fans still wanted classics like Tom Sawyer and Closer to the Heart, but the band also wanted audiences to embrace fresh material that reflected where they were musically in the 90s. One of the biggest reasons Test for Echo mattered was because it revealed how fearless Rush remained after more than 20 years together. Most bands from their era were either breaking up, fighting internally, or touring only for nostalgia. Rush did the opposite. They released complex new songs, packed with unusual rhythms, philosophical lyrics, and heavy guitar work. The title track, Test for Echo, tackled media culture and the way television shapes public opinion. Neil Peart's lyrics became darker and more reflective compared to earlier albums. Songs like Driven and Half the World showed the band experimenting with heavier sounds that matched the aggressive tone of 90s rock without abandoning their progressive roots. Critics at the time were divided. Some loved the heavier direction, while others missed the more melodic style of the 80s. But fans respected that Rush never played it safe. During live performances, Geddy Lee's bass work sounded thunderous, Alex Lifeson added layers of texture with massive guitar tones, and Neil Peart continued proving why many considered him the greatest drummer in rock history. Even younger musicians started paying attention again, because Rush sounded energized rather than outdated. The concerts themselves became legendary for another reason: the band's incredible musicianship. Reviewers constantly praised how Rush could recreate complicated studio recordings live without relying on backing tracks or extra musicians. Everything audiences heard came directly from three men on stage. Neil Peart was often the center of attention. His enormous drum kit looked like a machine built for precision warfare. Fans waited all night for his famous drum solo, which evolved into one of the most iconic moments in live rock history. Every night, Peart mixed technical mastery with creativity, combining jazz-inspired fills, electronic percussion, and impossible timing changes. At the same time, Geddy Lee was handling bass pedals, keyboards, vocals, and bass guitar almost simultaneously. Many frontmen struggled just to sing properly during a concert, but Lee managed to coordinate multiple instruments while hitting difficult vocal notes. Alex Lifeson, meanwhile, became the emotional core of the band with atmospheric guitar work that shifted between heavy riffs and delicate melodies. That chemistry is what separated Rush from almost every other rock band. They weren't just performers. They functioned like three musicians completely locked into one shared musical brain. The Test for Echo era also marked one of the last moments before tragedy completely changed Rush forever. At the time, fans had no idea that Neil Peart's life would soon be devastated by unimaginable loss. Just a few years later, his daughter Selena died in a car accident, followed less than a year later by the death of his wife Jacqueline from cancer. Those heartbreaking events forced Rush into a long hiatus, and many people believed the band would never return. Looking back now, the 1997 tour feels almost like the closing chapter of one phase of Rush's history. The energy, experimentation, and optimism of the Test for Echo concerts carried an emotional weight that became even more powerful in hindsight. But during those performances, the band still played with absolute intensity. Songs like Resist created emotional moments where audiences sang along quietly, while heavier tracks such as Driven reminded everyone that Rush could still compete with modern rock bands. The balance between introspection and explosive musicianship made the tour unique. It wasn't just about technical skill anymore. It felt personal, human, and deeply emotional. Another fascinating part of this period was how Rush connected with multiple generations of fans at once. Older listeners who discovered the band during albums like 2012 or Moving Pictures still packed arenas, but younger fans were beginning to discover Rush through MTV, music magazines, and the growing internet culture of the late 90s. Unlike many veteran bands, Rush earned respect from alternative and metal musicians who admired their complexity. Members of bands like Metallica, Primus, Dream Theater, and Foo Fighters openly praised Rush's influence. That admiration helped introduce Rush to younger audiences who may never have explored progressive rock otherwise. The live shows reflected that crossover appeal. One minute the audience erupted during a classic anthem like Limelight, and the next they were fully engaged with newer songs many casual fans barely knew. Rush understood something important that many legacy artists forget. Fans can sense authenticity. The band never pretended to chase trends. Even when their music evolved, it still sounded unmistakably like Rush. That honesty created loyalty that lasted decades. It's one reason their fan base remains incredibly passionate even today. The production of the Test for Echo tour also deserves attention because it captured Rush at a time when live concerts were becoming larger and more theatrical. Giant video screens, synchronized lighting, and visual storytelling became major parts of arena rock during the 90s, and Rush embraced those tools without letting them overshadow the music. Still, the heart of every concert remained the performances themselves. Critics repeatedly mentioned how tightly rehearsed the band sounded. Even difficult arrangements filled with odd time signatures were delivered with near perfection. That level of precision became Rush's trademark. Neil Peart especially pushed himself physically every night. His drumming style demanded incredible endurance because he rarely played simple patterns. Every song contained constant movement, rapid transitions, and complicated fills. Watching him perform live felt almost unreal. Many drummers still study footage from that era to understand how he maintained such consistency for nearly 3 hours on stage. Fans also appreciated Rush's sense of humor. Despite their reputation for seriousness, the band often included funny video skits and playful moments during concerts. That contrast made them even more relatable. Behind the technical brilliance were 3 musicians who genuinely enjoyed playing together. Over time, Test for Echo gained a stronger reputation among Rush fans. While it may not receive the same mainstream attention as albums like Permanent Waves or Moving Pictures, many listeners now appreciate it as an important bridge between eras. It captured a veteran band refusing to stand still creatively while still respecting the sound that made them legendary. Songs from the album continue to spark debate among fans. Some believe tracks like Driven rank among Rush's most underrated work, while others see the album as the final glimpse of the band before the emotional darkness that followed in Neil Peart's life. Either way, the record remains historically significant. The tour also proved something important about Rush's identity. Even after decades together, they still approached music like students eager to improve rather than stars satisfied with old success. Neil Peart constantly studied new drumming techniques. Alex Lifeson experimented with textures and effects. Geddy Lee explored fresh approaches to bass and vocals. That commitment to growth became one of Rush's defining qualities. They never allowed comfort to replace creativity. Today, looking back at articles describing Rush delivering new tunes and some echoes of the past, the phrase feels almost poetic. It perfectly summarizes what made Rush special throughout their entire career. They respected their history without becoming trapped by it. Every era of the band carried traces of earlier greatness while still searching for something new. The Test for Echo tour now stands as one of the most emotionally important periods in Rush history. It represented the final chapter before years of silence, heartbreak, and uncertainty. Yet it also showcased the band at an incredibly high level musically. Geddy Lee's powerful voice, Alex Lifeson's creative guitar work, and Neil Peart's unmatched drumming combined to remind audiences why Rush remained one of the most respected rock bands in the world. Even decades later, fans continue discussing those performances, sharing newspaper clippings, concert memories, and rare footage online. That lasting passion proves Rush was never just another rock band. They built a connection with listeners through intelligence, musicianship, and authenticity. And in many ways, those new tunes still echo today.